Welcome to the Retail Tech Podcast. My name is Darius Vasefi. Today, we have a very special guest who's been at the cutting edge of technology and AI innovation. Brian Sathianathan is the co-founder and chief technology officer of iterate.ai, a company that's redefining how enterprises leverage AI through low-code platforms. Before Iterate, Brian worked on the early iPhone program at Apple. I'm excited to dive into his journey, his insights on AI, and what's next for Iterate. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Darius. And I'm glad to be here and excited.
Let's start a little bit with your background. What was that experience at Apple working on the iPhone like? That must have been a very interesting time.
No, it was a great time. I think we were in the very, very early days of cell phones, right? Because by that time, very few people, especially the public, had any sort of smartphones, right?
Mhm.
Some executives and leaders had the Blackberries, and I did have a few. I did have a smartphone, but that was like a Windows PC smartphone, which actually had like menus and everything on the top.
Yeah.
So I think what Apple really did was went into an industry, and in the very early part of it, we did not also have a lot of GSM as well as antenna and people who knew the cell phone technology really well. I mean, there are a few, but they weren't enough. So Apple kept hiring, and we're trying to find the best people and also build a device that is unique from an experiential perspective, as well as that had the right technology and also was able to. Because if you are thinking about providing a great experience, right, on the device, because the mobile experience was terrible, right? Watching even before the iPhone was launched, even Steve Jobs actually said, "Well, watching videos on the device is terrible," because which it was, right? Like the iPods and even like other
Mhm.
devices. It was really hard to watch because screens were tiny and the keyboard was always there, very fixed. So that experience was like, really interesting because we had to reinvent a lot of things from scratch to do things right, to get the right type of experience. And it was very rewarding because these are all small teams, right? In
Yeah.
undisclosed locations. And I remember like the first team that I was working with. I mean, all the different group leaders had different teams to different stuff. So I had one of the teams, and we were in a kind of a non-disclosed location, not in the main office, away from everybody else, and even our bosses didn't have the disclosures for what the work we did, right?
Wow.
So it's all a very much an interesting like a dot reporting line, right?
It is. It
And
is.
we also
Yeah.
had the ability to go and because some of the work that my team did was we worked on the security of the iPhone device, especially the cryptographic security. In terms of when the iPhone device was manufactured, we basically activated the radio board and basically enabled the device to the GSM antenna to start working and the GSM chip to start working, and then bless the device with an IMEI, right? Basically, it gets a unique ID. So that entire process, the phone turning from becoming a brick into an actual active phone process was run by, and I even have like a joint patents with others at Apple, like the whole process of blessing these things and converting them. So a lot of
Very
the
interesting.
specifications, yeah, a lot of the specifications were built, thought through from scratch, and it was really interesting because it was kind of a very unique type of a work. We had the ability to go and hire really smart people from other teams that we didn't have the skill sets for, and we would just backfill them. And and this is like kind of picking up the best
Y-
and the brightest from wherever you want, because the iPhone project was blessed all the way from Steve. So
Yeah, yeah.
you could sort of get the best people, and they were great minds at that time, and we worked like day and night. And there are times I remember we worked I think straight for 72 hours
Wow. Wow.
to get ready for one of the internal release versions, and then
That's what it takes, right?
yeah,
That's what it takes. So
yeah.
so this must kind of like be almost like is it like the same experience as we're going through right now with Gen AI?
Yeah, I know. It's kind of similar. It's kind of similar, right? It's kind of similar. It's a lot of things have to be figured out, right? Even though people have a general sense of where things are going, and it changes every day, so that there is a lot of variability in it. So I think that a leader's ability to kind of navigate through chaos, right, and at the same time keep everything together, and keep the ship running. I think it's really an interesting skill, right?
It
So
is.
yeah, and then we feel that every day. I mean, it's interesting because we've been in the AI space since 2018, and especially with Gen AI, the models coming since last August, right? Every time I would go on a vacation or something and come back, I would feel like completely outdated within within a week and a half. That's how fast information is moving, right?
The past 2 years have really been
Yep,
just
yep,
unbelievable. And
yeah,
it's
because
not stopping. It's
it's
like
not it's
every
not stopping.
week.
Every week it's getting the momentum's increasing, right? What's also really interesting here is this is also the first time where you see momentum from every side, right? What I mean by saying that is that because this is AI, this Gen AI is a horizontal force across every organization. You see momentum from the technology and the research side, right? Like you seeing so many papers coming in, and then all of them have different techniques. Because essentially, if you look at AI, there are two major things. One is the power of the three things: power of the hardware, power of the network to tie all these hardware together, which is essentially what NVIDIA and Twitter and all those guys are building, right? And then you have X, of course, yeah. And then you have the power of the algorithms, right? Which is changing very rapidly, and it's sort of an undercurrent, right? I mean, just look at DeepSeek,
Mhm.
right? Like they took a lot of things that are well known, right? MTP, multi-token prediction, right? Or like taking certain parts of FPA, taking advantage of it, right? So it's a lot of things like MOE. MOE is the mixture of agents that has been there in Mistral for almost a year now, right? So you take up so a lot of like putting together, connecting the dots is happening at such a pace. And then there is also in innovation in like newer optimizations in algorithm, papers released every day, right? At a
Yeah.
rapid rate. This is one of the times that the most amount of patents and the most amount of papers are released. And
Yeah.
then if you are a business leader and if you're running a business, then you got to keep track of, you have to have one of your foot in technology, really making sure you're on top of the trends and where things are going. And on the other side, you got to also have a really strong foot on the business, because the business momentum is happening really fast. Because with agentic right now, the trend right now, this is kind of the first time where organizations can not only create top line benefits, but can also create significant bottom line benefits, because agents can automate things, especially businesses that have very small margins are fighting for margins. This is a great time for them to make their bottom lines better, right?
Yeah.
Those are so now you have a very dual momentum coming from the very strong, a fire hose from the business side and a fire hose from the technology side. So it's a really interesting and a great time to live in, and also a bit overwhelming too, right? But I think
Yeah.
one thing, kind of sorry, I'm going a little bit long-winded, but one thing that
That's
I think
fine.
is promising, that I have been experiencing myself also, is that the large language models are getting better and better day by day. And especially if you are someone who are closely taking advantage of these things, it's sort of a what I call kind of a supercar for your mind, right?
Mhm.
We are in our inside iterate. One of the mandates that I put to a lot of our senior engineering leaders is we got to start taking applications we build, and at least 20, 30, 40% of our apps and solutions, and even our runtimes and engines, we want to generate using LLM, right? And some of the leaders out of 8 or 9 different projects, major categories of leadership, 1 or 2 of them have been fully successful. They are able to do 80% of what they need to do. And that wasn't possible in November. When I said this in September, people kind of said, Brian, that's not going to work, right? You'll say it and you'll go after a meeting,
Yeah.
still be doing this the old way, right? But then it became possible in December, and January it became even more possible. And now with the O3 models, it's completely possible in, I don't know, in February 4th or 3rd, starting Sunday, right? So
Right.
yeah, so you are seeing that, that it's getting better every day. And I think especially for experienced leaders and experienced technology leaders and business leaders, if you have if you have your mind kind of synchronized, so this use LLMs and this AI, Gen AI as a supercar for your mind, right? You can do crazy things, right? I'll give you a classic example, right? We've been working with one of the projects we've been working is with one of our partners. Is actually on very very tiny boards, right? POSs and small boards, right? But running and pruning LLMs or even pruning things like bringing in a lot of the existing AI technology to these small devices is very difficult because these devices don't support all those library, doesn't have the compute power, right? So writing and porting stuff into these devices to their capacity is very difficult, right? Until a month ago, where we took a lot of our prior knowledge of what we did and gave it to the LLMs and said, now you write for this device,
Wow.
right? So we ourselves are seeing benefits. I think that what's really interesting in this world that I'm seeing is people who are very open-minded, people who really want to spend the time to work with these LLMs and get outputs and help automate can eventually become like orders of magnitude more stronger and
Super developers,
super developers, super business people,
super product managers.
super product managers. Yeah, so they are gonna basically it's gonna become like the superpower, right? This is really
Yeah,
being a superpower, right? Yeah.
it is. It is a superpower. So I'm, my company, we're building a hybrid agent for shopping. And, I know like what you're going through as well. It's like every day, almost every week, we hear like OpenAI just released this. Of course, DeepSeek did that. And it's just like the innovation. And every one of these changes, because you're relying on these tools, can impact your operation and how your product works. So
Yeah.
keeping up with that change, and even to the point that, is this something that's just going to make my business irrelevant
Yeah.
in a week? And how do I cope with that? And how do you, and especially like when you have investors and customers, and I'm sure you're getting bombarded with questions from all sides. So it's actually a very challenging time for founders and builders.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. I think the thing is, if we if we I think it's also I think two parts. One is to work hard, but also work smart. How do we actually
Mhm.
work through because the honest truth is certain industries and certain startups, this thing is gonna completely take out. And that's just how it's gonna play out, right? So founders who are having companies in industries where they can be taken out, they have to be very careful and pivot very fast, right? Because earlier pivoting was a
Yeah.
trend. Now I think it's gonna become even more important because
What are we pivoting to today?
exactly what are we pivoting to today, right? So a lot of that agility, I think, is going to be required for founders, and I think it's also going to be a confusing time for investors too, right? Because they are hearing all the business news, and they are trying to decipher, and they are not at the very bottom of the wire, so they also you know um can really see exactly what's going on, how the sausage is made. They have a feeling by talking to founders. So I think it's a really interesting time. I think it's I would say an immense time of learning, right? I think it's a
It is. It
yeah,
is. I mean, that's like for I guess for innovators, that's the fun part of it, is
yeah,
the amount of learning that we are, that's happening. So let's talk a little bit about iterate, of course. What did you guys start with, and maybe focus more on the retail applications?
correct.
And where are you now? What are the products? I know some of the products that you've launched, and we can talk about those as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So Iterate was started by John Nordmark, who's my business partner, and I, with the goal of helping large traditional enterprises. That means companies whose core is not technology, right? But today, every company is a software company, and every company is an AI company, right? So how do these companies who don't sell AI software, who sell beauty products, who sell convenience store products who sell like, cookware. How do these companies compete in a world where every company is a software company, every company is an AI company, every company is an agent company, right? How do they compete in this agent first world, right? So when we first started, all these things didn't exist. It was basically, how do I actually do digital transformation? Because we started a while back, right? So
Yeah.
how do we do digital transformation and how do we bring in innovation from outside? So we built a platform called Interplay. It's a drag and drop platform, right? Because the main thesis behind this is that a lot of these if you today, even in the world generally, right, there are 25 million application and web type engineers who can build a website, who can build a quick app for something, right? And retail in especially have a lot of them, right? They have, most retail teams do have app people who can build apps, and because all of them have a mobile app and so on and so forth, right? They've been doing this for the last 15 years. But only 300,000 AI people, and they are in research institutions, are paid $1 million a year, hired by Google, right? So it's very hard for these traditional companies to hire these smart talents. So what we did was we abstracted a lot of the capabilities, the AI knowledge into Lego blocks, and
Okay.
provided a platform where even application engineers can start building. So that's how the business started. But very soon, because of my business partners' connections in retail, and we had knew the retailers liked us and we liked them, we got quite a few customers very quickly, especially during pandemic, right? The ability to, especially chief digital officers and people who are head of digital, wanted to get things out to the customer really quickly. And they wanted a solution. I mean, they didn't care about platform or development, right? Because they had some teams, but development wasn't their thing. The idea was, how do I bring from A to B? Can I, before the stores close in pandemic, how do I enable click and collect? How do I enable, pay by plate? All these solutions, right? So what we did was, because we had a platform, we were able to abstract these things much better, and we were able to bring these templates, because all these Legos can be connected together, and you can create a flow or a template. So these, once you create a template once, you can replicate the template many times. So that go-to-market speed was very helpful for the leaders. Then that's how we ended up starting with a lot of the companies. As when AI came in, we basically abstracted all AI capabilities, data-oriented data science AI capabilities, computer vision. And when generative came in, all the capabilities of generative, right? So that became a very easy paradigm for the leadership to replicate with their little teams that they had in retail, right? And then what we did was, over the time, we figured out the last 4 or 5 years, we've done these certain retail functions really well. For example, we could do things like recommendation ML models, or we could do ML models for search functions. We could do machine learning models, or AI models for, or even Gen AI models for conversational experiences for retail, right? Want to say, like, I want to find a lipstick, red lipstick, this type of shading, or I want to find something dark to solve, circles, dark circles under the eye, right? So this type of thing, we had really good solutions that we built, and we've templatized a lot of them. We had, like, pay by plate type solutions. You drive to the gas station, go to your vehicle, we can identify your license plate and open up the pumps. So that type of solution. So we've templatized them in our platform. And over time, we also actually began to build end user applications, right? Especially last year, since 2018 to 2024, the very beginning part of it, we were what you call a direct business. So that means, we sold directly to customers. We had direct customers. But if we were to scale our business, especially with AI going, so pervasive everywhere, we have to tap into the jet streams, or the momentum that is created by partners. So Intel became one of our closest partners. We are a strategic partner to Intel. Then we signed through their network. They opened up a large series of partners. And so we signed several partners like TD SYNNEX and many others to sell in the channel. So we built a channel business. And when in the channel business, we still sell a development product, but we also said, we also want to sell end user products, because we already had we had a lot of experience building final applications for retailers and others. So we have one product right now called Generate, which is an AI assistant, right? Which is also bundled with Intel as well. If you buy an AI PC, it's available. You can download it for your AI PC. But you can also download it in the enterprise as well as in your private network, or on your hybrid cloud, or on your cloud, actual cloud, right? what generate, and you can download it from the Iterate's website as well, right? Iterate.ai. So what this does is like for organizations that want to provide secure AI assistant, like 68% of organizations are blocking ChatGPT. The reason they are blocking is because they're afraid that their employees are putting in source code and stuff that's not supposed to be there, right? So this provides an alternative, a commercial alternative with powerful LLMs, but running within your walls, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So that's or for people who want to run it on their PC, employees, the IT can lock your PC and then kind of provide a solution where the LLM can run on your AI PC, right? If you need for daily usage, right?
So that's a good point. Good example. So how is Generate actually installed? Like, do I install it on my own device and run it, or it's not a consumer application, correct?
It's both. So we have a consumer slash SMB version available at iterate.ai. You can download it, and I think it's 3 months free, and then it's just like I think $9.99 or something after that. We also have an enterprise Docker. We license to enterprises, so they get the Docker and scale that in their own network, or in AWS. We are also enabling it in AWS Marketplace pretty soon. So you can go there and click enterprise leaders, enterprise IT people can click on it, and it'll automatically install it in their network. Right.
Okay, but
Yeah.
it's not like a consumer application.
We do have a consumer version too.
So how does the consumer one work? What does it
The
actually
consumer
do
one
for a
works.
consumer?
So the consumer one works is if you have an AI PC, an Intel AI PC, right?
Okay.
Which is basically the CPU, NPU, GPU combo, right? Like Intel and many others are selling them. They're called Lunar Lake or Meteor Lakes, right?
Yes.
You have an AI PC, or the new version that we just released, I think last week, will also support NVIDIA too. So you can have any PC, right?
Okay.
As long as you have an RTX, one of those, you'll have a little green sticker there that says it supports NVIDIA. So if you have an NVIDIA RTX or one of those accelerators, GPUs, it'll automatically work there also. It works on Windows right now. We've only released the Windows version. We are also working on a Mac version. We're going to release as well for the consumer, right?
That was a question in my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, the difference between the consumer version and the enterprise is in the consumer version, we can only run smaller LLMs. That means like an 8 billion parameter, but they're fine-tuned. So they'll give you very good accurate capability for documents. We've tuned it for complex documents for like Excel sheets with multiple tabs and things like that. So it'll work fairly well. And we also have created the ability to do RAG. So it's not just an AI assistant.
Okay.
You can actually point to your C drive and you can index your entire C drive. So this thing will basically index very large documents. If you look at Microsoft Copilot on the cloud, I think there is limitation on the file size. This is on the cloud, right? Not even on locally, right? We actually provide like, you could do thousands of pages, right? Like that, right? Within 18, 20 seconds, very quickly, right? If you put like 5-page document, it'll be under a couple of seconds, very quickly it'll ingest it. And we've also like, one of the things I think our product team did some research, we found on average PC users, especially if they've been preserving all their private documents like their trusts and all that stuff, over birth certificates, whatever, over the last 10 years, they would end up having about 10,000 odd documents, right? So one thing we did was, one day we want to index all your private documents locally, and it never leaves the cloud. It's with your laptop, and the vector database is sitting locally, right? So and the LLM is also running locally. So, and then we purposefully actually have a little warning there saying, if you click on a web search, it'll say, we are querying the web. But every time else, there's a full guarantee, a green button at the very top that says, you are using this locally, right? So it provides the local capability, offline capability, connectivity, everything, within very self-contained, right? The same thing can happen on the enterprise as well. You could install it's a different version, but the same software on the cloud. And then the IT people could just basically enable like, Darius has access to these files, but Brian does not have access to those and so on. You can connect it to like an LDAP or something and set up your permissions. The IPC is just self-contained consumer version. The
Okay.
price version is you can do all kinds of crazy, IDP, permissions and everything, right? Authentication, authorization, access permissions. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So
Right. So that's one of the
that's
products.
yeah.
Yeah. That's one of
Yeah.
our products. The second product that we are selling is actually called Frontline. So Frontline is essentially a workforce management software for frontline workers. So as in retail, when the workers come to the store, a lot of times if it's a corporate owned store versus if it's a franchise owned store, it's managed differently, right? So how do the managers locally assign tasks to these people? How do you actually manage how do you know that they're checking off the task? And say you have some new training you want to do for the workforce, how do you actually deploy the training? So using frontline, because what happens is really interesting is like, I think 72 or 73% of the world's population are actually frontline workers, right? The remaining 20 or something is
Mhm.
actually, white collar desk workers.
Yeah, that makes
That's
sense.
but all the cool workforce management and workforce capability is designed for the white collar market. There is
Right.
really no solution for the front line. So what we do is we also, in addition to people assigning and managing tasks, you can do training module. We actually have an LLM connectivity there. So you can dump in your training documents and can automatically create courses for you. So you can make the employees like take quizzes and courses and everything. We also have a social community module, which kind of boost up the frontline workers' morale, right? So they're like, they can communicate with each other. You can set up like rules of engagements and it'll check like if somebody is violating it, but it has the ability to do that. And then the one final thing that we do in that product is you can also hook up to a camera. So there is a spill on aisle 9. The camera will assign the task to.
Oh,
Yeah, and then
wow.
it'll pick up the task, right? So that type of capability is one of the things that we are providing. That's just another product that we are providing called Frontline. So it's generate on Interplay is the base platform. On top of it, we have Generate, the AI assistant, two versions of it. We have Frontline for workers, and then we have an application called Detect, which is our computer vision app that can detect various things, license plate people, and various things. And then we have an application called Extract, which is actually used by banks and insurance companies, specifically in Asia, because Fuji is one of the resellers there. So especially when you have a lot of unstructured documents, you can ingest the unstructured document into the platform. And this will basically do very complex OCR across like 15 or 16 languages, including Chinese, written Chinese, a little bit of handwriting. It'll do like, Malay, Thai, many different languages. And then it can also do routing. So you could say, okay, if this claim is from this hospital, send it here for approval and so on, right? So
Oh,
mostly
that's very interesting. So you can actually do like workflows?
you can do pretty complicated workflows in it. Yeah, so it's got a whole workflow manager that you can assign workflows, call third-party APIs, all that stuff. All kind of routing can happen there. Yeah.
Very interesting. So it seems like you're almost like becoming a lab and building, productizing different technologies that you've developed.
Yeah, so yeah, no, I think that's how we originally started, but then now I think we are kind of becoming what like an ecosystem, right? We say like a
Hmm.
platform-oriented ecosystem for certain sectors, and as we do new sectors, we will add more app categories together, right? And then things that we have not productized that we sell them as accelerators, right? As a part of Interplay, you want a drive-through or something, yeah, great, you can get a drive-through accelerator from the solution.
Right, right.
Yeah, yeah. So
That's
but
very interesting.
the idea is to provide go to market, especially for retail, QSR, and other leaders, right? If you want to go fast to market, how do we help you? Because they are in an industry. Because I mean, like in the past, like mega system implementation and all that stuff was done by IT, and it's still going to be done by IT. But digital and especially AI now, every other department, especially innovation, marketing, all these teams, they want to deploy lots of consumer facing solutions very fast. And in retail, it's tricky because of course it has to be priced right and priced low enough so that you can support their margins, right? Uh,
Yep.
the other is you also have to work with a lot of legacy systems because there is a lot of legacy in the stores and things like that. So we adapt for that as well, right? Because we have a platform that can connect to a lot of things. We can make that connectivity better. So that's why I think it's really interesting because if you really look at a lot of our main customers are actually CMOs and CDOs, chief digital officers and chief innovation officers, chief AI officers, right? People who are interested in getting products quickly. We do have a few CIOs, but that actually happens as a transition, right? What I mean to say is the CMO initially gets it, and then it grows, and then it transitions it into the IT team, right? Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, that is very interesting. The chief AI officer is definitely like a new role that's
yeah.
starting to come around, and the so um, we we're seeing all these changes every week, every I don't know, every month, every like the whole world is changing.
Yep.
How do you see like iterate if developing even, I mean, how far even can one project into the future in this kind of an environment?
Um, it's actually hard because you know, if somebody says they can project into future 5 years or 8 years or 10 years, they're probably lying, or like, or they just are very naive, right? Uh,
Hmm.
it's because it's a fast changing world. I think, at least in my mind and my business partner's mind, I think the way we see it is that the next 1 or 2 years is gonna be the year of agentic, especially the year of, regardless of all the marketing and the big hype, there's gonna be a lot of automations that are happening because we are seeing that even within iterate, right, in our marketing side, even in our code development side, right, there is productivity gains, right, across. So I think the next 1 or 2 years is going to be that productivity gain and a lot of those automation. The interesting thing about the productivity gain and automation is two things. One is businesses have always been optimizing their business for better productivity gain for I don't know, hundreds of years, right?
Right.
So from a business point of view, the KPI and the justification for this is very cleaner, right? Because earlier, some of the technologies, like if you say blockchain or like IoT or whatever, justification is very hard, right?
Yes.
Here, I think that in AI, because of the productivity gains, if it's done well, justification is becoming, because it's not the shiny object, because it's hard to sell shiny objects within organizations, right? You may sell it for one or two little initiative to get people excited, but it doesn't create a snowball effect. But these things, the productivity gains and also even top line improvements, you can actually sell them, right? So that it can create a snowball effect. So that's from the business side. The other is IT teams have always been used to doing productivity gain applications for a long time, either by getting in third-party vendors or like building their own thing, right? So it's kind of in a like a perfect storm of things that have already been tested, but now you have a brand new AI flavor to it that completely changes it and makes it even more productive. So I think the next 1 or 2 years is going to be there. I think it's two parts to it. One is, can you make your solution really simple for customers to use? One challenge that we have is earlier when we sold InnerPlay and the products, it was directly sold into senior leaders and technology teams of retailers, and we also had innovation teams our own teams working with retail teams. So it's much easier because you can solve complex problems. Because in retail, there's a lot of customization, right? Every retailer's problem is unique, right? So
Yeah.
there's customization. So how do you make that simple, right? So I think the new challenge that we have is, as we are selling through channel just beyond retail, not only retail but horizontally, you got to create it super simple so that the channel people can sell this much faster and it's easy to understand. So how do you simplify AI, right? How do you lubricate this, right? So that so that's definitely a challenge that we are figuring out. I think the last 1 year we've been trying to make it make it work on the simplified manner, right? The custom big large retail deployments we can do because we've been in the custom business for quite a long time, because we provide a dev platform, so of course everybody wants to customize things, right? But that this whole lubrication and scaling, I think, is interesting. Second, I think, is the mixed world of LLM powered and traditional code joining together, or solutions joining together, right? Because I don't know if you look at what Sathianathan said. Well, SaaS is going away, and it's all gonna be like agentic, right? But I think there is a fine line to it, right? It may sound as a beautiful marketing message, but if you like peel the onion, there is a fine line to it. The fine line is like, if you look at a Google search, right? The traditional Google search, it's 13 times more compute efficient than an LLM powered summary, even with the most optimized LLM, right? So even if token prices become cheaper, we do multi-token generation, optimized LLM, better algorithms, better pipelines, better data centers, right? Fast neural connects to all these things, right? Uh, your cost is still going to be high. So what it means is not every application is just going to turn into a magical LLM application. There are times where LLMs will have to generate code, And when the business process and workflow systems are very well known, it'll still execute custom, like well-known traditional old school code, right? Things where there is unknown, LLMs will kick in, right? So there will be a very powerful hybrid world, right? That's how you're going to get better productivity, right? Because things that can run workflows and things that can run on traditional code will be far more efficient in terms of a cost perspective, right? So you will still, it'll be a very mixed hybrid world, right? And then third part, I think it's going to be interesting, I think is organizations have to disrupt themselves, like in everything, just like how stuff that we are trying to do, code generation, better marketing initiatives, better sales reach out initiatives, but all powered through AI, right? So I call
Yeah,
this,
this is
yeah,
yeah, these are all like really these are not simple problems for
yeah, they're not
leaders.
simple problems. Yeah.
So what kind of like new skill sets do leaders have to develop to survive and thrive in this kind of an environment? I mean, there's like you can't do what you used to do even 3, 4 years ago. Like as a retail leader, for example,
Right.
the CEO, the board, everybody like I mean they need to learn some new habits, some new skills
Yep.
to manage this change.
Yeah, there is gonna be a big, huge change management that will come through this process, right? And also there has to be a lot of upskilling and reskilling, which I think from a leader's perspective, they have to make sure their organizational workforce is equipped. Either they are upskilled or new blood comes into the organization. I think that has to be figured out very quickly, right? Because your company is as good as your employees, right? And now, of course, your agents
As good as your agents, yeah.
as good as your right? So I think the upskilling, figuring out the right agent to run in your company, and also figuring out the right employees, right? I think the trick is also to, like I said previously, the openness of employees, right? Employee base that is very open to working with AI and can use AI as a superpower, right? So that's an area I think organizations should focus on training very quickly, very rapidly. Second, I think CEOs and leaders should work with companies like us and others to kind of get, because we do a lot of board level briefing to senior leaders, right? To understand what the trends are really quickly, like, and also have a little bit of roll the sleeve mentality because these are changing so fast. So you need to, this is a learning opportunity. I think learn a little bit more. I think the other, I think, is also the mid-level leaders and the leaders who are responsible for bringing things out to the market, the VPs and the directors, I think in retail, have to ground themselves in use cases. But don't think about what AI can do for you, but think about what your current business is and think the reverse direction. What are the low-hanging things in my business that I can quickly convert to AI fast and cheap, right? I don't need to build everything, right? Because it's like this, right? Because if you look at it, it might be overwhelming, but everything you don't need to build within your organizations. There are things because the economies of scale is applying and AI is becoming cheaper to buy, right? Day by day. Just like what CPUs were in the olden days, right? The Moore's law,
Right,
the
right.
law is gonna get applied on AIs and LLM and everything, right? So I think they should think about like what are the things that we want to quickly put in, buy and test and play with opposed to what we're gonna build, right? So the strategy that I look at it is like brilliant basics versus big bets. There are certain things that are big bets. So big bets do more experimentation, be more cautious, but the brilliant basics, the things that you can quickly apply AI in marketing, content creation, image creation, legal, all these places that are auxiliary to your business, apply AI really quickly, experiment really, really fast, right? Put together tiger teams and
Right, right.
experiment fast, right? And that's how I think you're gonna get because I think sometimes I think leaders always struggle between what is the core comprehensive board level strategy versus what can we do today. I mean, I'm sure every senior leader has 10 directors or 5 directors who are experimenting, maybe at least one experimenting, right? But the question is that doesn't roll up. Either
Right.
it doesn't roll up fast enough, or it doesn't create value creation to the level where this could move the needle, right? So I think the trick is leaders should balance that carefully, right? Because this is one of those things where, right, I mean, as you know, like your existing revenue is the enemy of your future revenue, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very oxymoronic to say, but it is true, right? Because a lot of companies that are going through digital transformation, they actually believe that, okay, you know what, my existing revenue will slowly fall and my new revenue will pick up. There is no fall and pick up. There is a down and a bunch of layoffs, lots
It's a
of
sine wave. Yeah.
and then suddenly this thing picks up, right? So you have these escape velocity problems on how to. I think leaders should, and now everything that, because sometimes leaders look at it and say, well, I'm coming to the end of my career and I'll retire in 4 years, and hopefully the new blood will come and will change the company, and it'll that may not be the case. Now the drop can happen in 4 months, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I
Yeah,
mean, I feel like there's so much opportunity, even building agents for leaders,
yeah,
building agents that are going to help leaders
yeah,
to survive and manage and navigate through their job, like
absolutely,
the
absolutely.
CEO agent, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right, because I mean, I think the whole concept, I think in Jensen's presentation, he was talking about had 80 direct reports and they have like the top five sent to him, right? I'm sure there is AI. I don't know what they do, but I'm sure there is AI in the back that's looking at all the
He's
top.
not reading every
He's
single
not reading
word,
everything, right? But I heard from employees he does respond. So that means, I mean, not to everybody, but the ones that are critical. So I'm sure there is some filtering mechanism that's going in the back, right? So tools like that has to be available for retailers. Right? There has to be tools for almost everyone, right? For
Yeah,
the
so retail is a unique being, I guess. Retailers in general are not very quick. They're not early adopters,
yeah,
although they're getting better and better. But it's understandable. I mean, it's like, and it used to be that you used to go to your customers and ask them, what do you need? What are you trying to do? And I think with what's happening right now is probably the opposite. The customers keep coming to you and say, what should I do? I can't figure out. There's so many things happening. You tell me. So are you seeing that in your business?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we are seeing that kind of thing, especially in the channel side, right? Uh, where we are seeing like the like people coming to channel leaders and channel salespeople and saying, customers coming and saying, we have all these new use cases, and they're kind of running around to say like, how do we support this, right? And retailers, I think, is also interesting, because I think the challenge I think retailers specifically have is that things that were considered innovative a year ago or 2 years ago are becoming table stake, and things are becoming table stake in front of consumers so fast, right? Nobody talks about
Mhm.
recommendation. Recommendation is table stake, right?
Yeah.
ML powered search, right? At one point, search was just elastic, right? 5 years ago, okay, did you enable an elastic search? Fantastic, right? Now they want, every customer want ML powered search. What's my cold start version? What's my recommendation version? What's my loyalty version? What about the version that for that 500,000 products that never convert or convert at a low rate, right? What's the version, right? What's the spelling mistake version, right? So all those
Right.
issues are coming in, and those are all becoming table stakes, right? Now the thing that retailers also looking at is scenarios like, especially on the digital side, right? Scenarios like, when I'm searching, just like Google is interweaving, right? Generative AI scenarios. How do I interweave more better experiences? Because search itself is changing, right? So searching something and getting a bunch of products is no longer what search is. Like if you one of the fears, and it's like if you can look at companies like Perplexity, right? Or any of these companies,
Mhm.
people are using these LLMs as their as their daily you know
Right.
portals, right?
Tasks, job to be done. We all
Has
have
to be
jobs to
done.
be done, and
Yeah. And then
even
the question,
consumers, yeah.
yeah, just like if I've optimized my product feed for Google search, how do I optimize my product feed for Perplexity? Or how do I optimize my thing for the next engine, right? So there's a lot of things that are coming up that they have to get ready, right? Um, but also I think AI will begin to solve certain problems that were difficult to solve before too, like cleaning up catalogs, adding attributes, and like some of those problems we can get better and can solve. Because in the previous, I think 2016 to 2018 timeframe, when you had traditional 2022 timeframe before Gen AI, when you had traditional AI, data science, and ML, you had to have a lot of data to train, right? So all these
Mhm.
retailers had struggled because their data wasn't clean, even though they had data gathered, right? So a lot of ML projects just failed because they wouldn't. The startup would keep on asking, "Give me more data." Well, we are not having accuracy. Well, none of the data work really well. But I think with the LLM world, it's a little bit going to get solved a little bit. Even with some bad data, things can look better because the whole knowledge of the internet is in the LLM, right? So it knows things more intimately than right.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, that whole part of the data and scraping and fresh data is like really important. Like, I mean, we can get data, like some data, of course, like for legal documents, of course, the court records are not going to change. But
Yeah,
for retail, everything is changing. Like data is changing on a daily. So like
absolutely,
last week's data is not good enough.
absolutely, absolutely. It's consistently changing, right? And everything is changing so fast. So I think generative AI is going to definitely help them. I think they need to holistically think through. I mean, in fact, some of the brands and retailers that we work with, I think they're thinking through a lot of the data problems now. But um, it's I think you need to get a hold of data as well as how information is surfaced up to a consumer is changing, and you want to be a part of that and fast, right? Because the other is also the earlier for retail, the bigger problem is okay, we got to get in the 2000, it was okay, we got to get to the internet, right? Take the traditional product, get to the internet. 2010, we got to get to mobile. 2015, 16, we have to get it recommended properly. It has to be personalized, right? Now, in the last few years, you got to be in all these outlets, right? You got to be in Roblox, you got to be in, uh, it's not just three outlets. It's not mobile, web, and site, right?
Mhm.
It's all these outlets right now. You have like you got to have so many digital outlets. Like you got to be in roadblocks. You got to be in TikTok. Right now, with this new type of portals appearing in Gen AI, you got to be in those portals like Perplexity or Anthropic, or like if Google is exposing a model garden, how do you be a part of the or like one of those search gardens or portals? How do you become a part of that? Right. So now
Yeah,
you
Google's business model is definitely under transformation.
yeah
And it's going to be interesting. I mean, I see a lot of innovation coming in through, especially on the shopping, which is like my specialty, my area. I see them doing a lot of things. One of the questions that like I have myself is there's two types of AI agents or agentic experiences. One of them is completely software. There is no human interface, everything's automated. And then the other one is human involvement, either human in the loop or AI in the loop.
yeah
Uh, which one of these has a better moat, in your opinion? And by moat, I mean like, okay, so it's going to be a lot easier for somebody to just go take DeepSeek or the OpenAI API and put a wrapper on top of it and say,
correct
I have an agent. And there is like if you look at the GPT store for OpenAI, there are 200 more shopping wrappers,
correct
and none of them are like I mean, there is really very little differentiation.
correct.
So how do you differentiate in an area in a world where it's so easy to create new products?
Yeah. So I think the question for startup is, I think the question has to be given to, there are two separate parties that could answer the question, right? One party is the startup, right? What do you offer new? The second part of the question is to the retailer themselves, right? You are selling products. What is your new product exposure, product surfacing experience look like? Right. See, I think I'll answer it from the retail side because product, of course, the people, companies who are building product has to eventually match what the retailer wants, right? Then only you can, unless you are like a
Mhm.
direct B2C, like a direct B2C, right? But like I think from a retailer's side, what's really interesting, especially in product finding experiences, every retailer, depending on who you are, have some level of unique elements, right? If you're selling home furniture, right? You have certain discovery elements, right? You have elements of, showing the entire experience. So you want to do the bathroom. Now the whole bathroom is uh, the entire bathroom experience, starting from the tub to the tile, right? Same thing in the kitchen, right? So that type of, so everyone has a unique capability based on their product. If you are in beauty, the virtual beauty capabilities, like, I have a skin condition, I'm going to a cocktail party today, right? The scenario, right? So like every retailer has some uniqueness attached to their business based on the product they're selling. If you're selling like tractor products, or if you're selling gardening product, right? So I think what they need to do is they need to attach their search and discovery experience with Gen AI and everything specific to that uniqueness of their industry and what they are selling, right? That creates better discoverability, right? Because like if
Yeah,
you're going for a makeup product or a beauty product, you may not just look for one product. You might actually look for a routine, because a lot of ladies struggle with their morning and evening routines because you can't follow them through, right? If you look at YouTube, there are hundreds of routine beauty videos, right? But it's great for for a 20-year-old to do that all day long. But if you are going to work day in, day out, how do you repeat very quickly, very fast, right?
right.
With kids and everything, right? So the question is practicality of these routines. How do you follow? So similarly, everything like I mean, if you like if you want to look at like remodel your bathroom, right? And then if you go and do a search right today on Google, right? Google will send you to one of the websites and there are all these intermediary lead capture websites. You get caught in, you fill in 8 pages of forms, complete waste of your time, right? And then you get spammed. But I think retailers, like if you are doing a home modeling, like you can capture that experience better and provide surface a better generative AI type generated worlds, right? Like all those tools, I think they have to look at what's critical, right? Some of the retailers, it's interesting, is they have big loyalty members over time, right? 5, 10,
Right.
20, 30, 40 million. How do you actually look at their shopping habits and surface those things on your searches, right? So I think
Mhm.
that's how retailers should think about it, right? Like how do I take what's unique and advantageous to me? And because like just copying what Amazon has always won't work, right?
Yeah.
Amazon is very good because they do a lot of research. I mean, their teams are very good, right? So they sometimes do really great things on their site, but it's not always the same style of product exploration and product experience, right? Right. And the other trick,
Yeah.
so the problem retailers have is that they already have very well established conversions. So you can't just change the experience right out of the gate. So you need to do sub-segment and A/B and certain portions without affecting the core business. So that
Mhm.
you got to fix the tire and run the bus at 100 miles, which is a little bit of a balance that I think I mean they're used to doing it. So that's an area we didn't think about. Yeah.
So I have a hypothesis that the omni-channel retailers are actually going to be able to take even more advantage of the new agentic applications because they can link to a local experience
Absolutely.
where, yeah,
100%. And especially omni-channel retailers over the years, by maintaining stores, they've developed unique experiences that are very unique to their brand, right? It's much harder for a commerce retailer to do, because commerce retailers are looking at converting best practices and frameworks of what's well known, and they're kind of reapplying and optimizing over into those things. But for like the omni-channel, it's interesting because over the time in stores and so on, they've built experiences, right? This human in the loop is interesting, right? Especially in beauty and other industries, there is SMEs or subject matter experts who are now you can take the SME knowledge and you can weaponize it using AI, or like convert it into.
yeah, yeah, that's where a lot of companies are actually uh, innovating and building new products. My own company, Visional, is we actually integrate. We use AI to start the conversation, learn more, and then transition to an
Correct.
agent on the ground in a store that can
Yep.
take it to the completion.
Yep.
And it's
Yep.
just a different experience.
Yeah, it is a different experience. I think that's why I think it's powerful because the human in the loop or human assisted
Mhm.
AI. Because think about AI as a supercar, right?
Yeah,
It's like your Tesla or like even more faster, right? Like you can for your mind, you can actually press on the gas if you need to and it'll go.
thank you. This is like a really insightful conversation. Thanks for sharing your journey and what the Iterate is doing.
It's a pleasure, Darius. Thank you so much.